Hey everybody, I'm Clif. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'm sober since August the 15th of 2001, and for that short amount of time, I'm as grateful as I know how to be. I got a sponsor. His name is Bob B. He's out of St. Paul, Minnesota. He knows he's my sponsor, and on days he's maybe iffy about that. But I have a home group. It's the Altered Boys. It's a men's stag group in Oklahoma City. We meet on Wednesday nights at 7:45. So two essential things I think you need to know about me: that I'm sober, that I got a home group, and I got a sponsor. I guess three things. Because I believe those are valuable pieces of the puzzle in Alcoholics Anonymous. So this has been just an incredible weekend. Really incredible weekend in terms of the speakers have all just been phenomenal. I mean, just phenomenal this weekend. You laugh a little bit, cry a little bit. And I think that's what makes for a really good conference. You know, you get here and you get filled up. But what I also know is that, you know, the speakers become incidental. They're a gathering point that we rally to. We come to listen to the speakers, but the real miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous takes place before the meetings and after the meetings. I am not so inclined to believe that anything that I say here today will revolutionize anybody's journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. But what I do know is this, and what I believe with all my heart is that the rides up here, the rides home, the conversations that took place between the meetings, the conversations at the ice cream social, heck, maybe even at the dance, I'm not sure, but those are where the real miracles of Alcoholics Anonymous happen, where one alcoholic relates to another and shares that miracle that our founders on June 10th, 1935, that spark that flared in Akron. And if you think about Akron, Ohio, and here in New Jersey, it's a long, long way. But I'm just not talking about geography. It's a long, long way from that moment in time when Bill Wilson visited Dr. Bob in Akron, and that moment that happened, as Bill described it, something passed between us. That moment in time when Alcoholics Anonymous in its birth, that came and through the miracle that God blessed us with this. And it's a long way from that moment to here, and all the people who've come before us, and all the things that have happened in Alcoholics Anonymous, through all the trials and tribulations that has gone on. Yet here we are, here we sit today, the benefactors of all the trial and error that happened between 1935 and even today. That passing of the torch from one to another, that passing along the message contained in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, sharing that what they know, what they discovered because they weren't hypothesizing it. It's what happened to them. And they reduced it to a book, and it gave to us the miracle, the roadmap, the recipe, the treasure map, as Sandy used to like to refer to it as. The treasure map to lead us to what? To the power that guides us all. And it's always on, when I'm tasked to talk on Sunday morning, I always get real emotional. I went and talked to Don. I said, I'm about on the edge of crying. He said, suck it up. This is Jersey, man. Because he's spiritual that way. Yeah. And you know, the part about it is here's what I know. When I came into this room today, I mean, I could just feel God's presence. It's palpable here. When we get together, when we gather together among each other, when we exchange the love we have for each other. Coming through that common peril, discovering the common solution that we ride the boat out together. Pulling in those who wish to join us in the boat, although they may crawl over later and jump out. We just keep rowing, we keep moving forward. Inviting them back in the boat whenever they wish. And through this, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, we gather this weekend. Why do we gather here? I mean, why is it so important that we gather? Why is it so important that we come together? Somewhere this morning, probably not far from here, in a house There's a scene playing out this morning. Are you waving at me or are you just waving? Okay, all right. Hey! Don't get up and go to the bathroom, I'm just saying. There's a scene playing out this morning. There's somebody sitting in the kitchen. And there's a couple of little kids in their bedroom. They're being really, really quiet this morning. Really quiet. And that person at the kitchen table this morning is maybe has a cup of coffee and their head is down. And somewhere in the back of the house there's a rumbling and the footfalls start and they come to the kitchen where the other person is. They drag a chair out and they sit down. And they look at the other person who's been sitting there and they say something like that, "I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I really didn't mean that. But I can guarantee you one thing. This will never, ever happen again." And here's what I'm willing to bet with my whole sobriety. That by the time the Jets kick off this afternoon, that same person will be drunk again and have no more clue how that happened than a man in the moon. And we come here to gather together to be reminded of the power of God. We come here together to be provided each other the strength of the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. That person in a house, maybe a half a mile away, the answers to all their problems lie right here. And the strangest part is they don't even know this exists. They don't even know this is here. The stranger part, they don't even know the questions that need to be asked. Why do we gather? We gather for those people. We gather for those people to be re-armored. We come here to remember of God's grace on all of us. That what we have here is a gift. A precious gift. One not to be taken lightly. We come here to be re-armored because what do we know? Because this afternoon or tomorrow or later this week when we all get back to our home groups, the next wave of insanity will crash our doors. And we're here to be re-armored, re-energized, retooled to go meet that wave of insanity when it crashes our doors. When it's boots on the ground, when it's time that we meet that request that God has for all of us, we'll be re-armored. We'll be prepared to spread the message. And God, what a great messages we've heard this weekend from everybody. It's tough to be the spiritual speaker when all you can think about last night was crack pipes. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, it's hard. You know, I really don't know what's going to happen this morning. I usually have some idea, but I don't know. I don't know. Cracked all last night. That's all I'm saying. I'm used to having some accelerant, so it kept me up a lot. So, God's grace is sufficient. I know that. It is sufficient. He meets us where we are. And I know my task today is to talk about 10 and 11. I hope some way through this talk today that we seem to work that in so that we know what that's all about. I can tell you a couple of stories that summarize my whole drinking career. I could tell you one, and that would be all I need to say about my drinking. And that would be this, that I went to treatment for the very first time in like 1988. My sobriety date, August 15th, 01. They sent me to treatment in 88 because somebody believed I had a drinking problem. Now, I want to tell you good people here that was not my problem. I hold a professional license, and they told me if I didn't go to treatment, they were going to take it away. So my problem was not alcoholism. My problem was a back problem. It seemed everybody was on mine. I need to get them off. And so I went to treatment to get them off. And I spent 30 days in a treatment center out in Arizona. And when I got out of there, I came home, and I had just divorced my second ex-wife. This is a bad scenario. Maybe this has happened to you. I got the neighborhood, but she got the neighbors. It was bad. And I remember I got home from treatment and had a little boy who was about 5 years old. Him and his brother, he was about 5 years old. He was outside playing. And I'm out in my backyard. He sees me and he says, "Hey, Clif, where you been?" And so I'm trying to think, how do I tell a 5-year-old kid I've been in treatment, So I just tell him, "Oh, man, I've been away." And he just looks at me. He said, "Oh, my mom said you're probably in jail." And she said that probably more than once. In jail. But that's what my life looked like prior to finding you people. I'm just a mess. I don't know that I suffer from alcoholism. It's the great riddle. I don't know that it's me. I just don't know I suffer from that. I don't know that I have that. And like a lot of the speakers have talked about this weekend, when I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I find out that, drinking is not really my problem. Although it appears to the outside world that is exactly my problem. Everybody I've met in my entire life has this to say to me: "You need to stop drinking. Drinking's a problem for you. You should quit drinking." I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and they say, "No, drinking's not your problem, it's your solution." Now, if you're new or you're nearly new here today, please don't run home and tell whoever that really loves you that, "Hey, this guy from Oklahoma City said drinking's not my problem." They will hunt me down and kill me. Just let them live in that for a while. But you told me that drinking was not my problem, it was my solution. That the true nature of my illness was selfish and self-centeredness. And I'm going to tell you something. If you had required me to make a list of the top 100 problems in my life prior to coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, selfishness, self-centeredness are not making the list. They don't show up anywhere on there. I'm so delusional about me that I don't even see that selfish and self-centeredness is a problem. I'm a giver. You people know this. I'm a giver. I'm a giver, but always with a hook. There's always a hook. There's a hook. If I give, I expect. Selfish and self-centered. And the true deal is that what I don't know is that I'm separated from God on self-will. This is what I don't know that the real problem of my life is. That I'm separated from God on self-will. And when you're separated from God on self-will, you're powerless. Well, I don't know that. How could I articulate something like that? What I feel is anxious apartness. I think that's what Bill wrote in the 12 and 12. This idea of anxious apartness. People have talked about it all weekend. Restless, irritableness, discontentedness. I'm with this group of people, and I hear what this group of people is, and I need to be there. I'm unhappy, dissatisfied, unsatisfied, particularly with my current circumstances. I just can't deal with that. I love what Larcene says, great member of the Al-Anon family group from out in California. Information floats through the universe, lands on my head, and I begin to take action on it like it's the truth, I will just create ideas and just go with them. We call that delusional thinking in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just begin to take action on that as if it's the truth. So what happens for a guy like me, I'm powerless and I'm restless, irritable, discontent. And so what happens for me is I begin to find ways to manufacture power. Now, I don't know that's what I'm doing, but I find ways to manufacture power because I don't know that I don't have the vocabulary nor the words to describe powerlessness. And so what I do is I manufacture power. What does that look like? Lying, cheating, stealing. I'll steal something from this guy and, I get a sense of power. I'm not that kind of guy. I'll help him look for it, but you know what I mean. I get a sense of power, but it's fleeting. It doesn't last very long. I have bad sex conduct. I go tell all my friends because it makes me feel better, makes me feel important. I share that with them, but it's fleeting. It doesn't last very long. I go back to restless, irritable, discontent. I cheat you out of something. I get a sense of power, but it's fleeting. I had to do something else to regain some kind of traction. And I live in this world of exercising character defects that gives me some sense of power. Much like booze gives me the sense of ease and comfort. Not real ease and comfort, yet the sense of it. I love how Wilson wrote our book. Seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. Sense of ease and comfort. As if I were lifted on a mountaintop. These ideas, these imageries, the delusion I create, I believe it's the alcoholic life is the only life for me. But I create and manufacture these character defects that I operate on because I need the sense of some kind of power, and they generate that for me. The trouble is, I lose that, and I'm restless, irritable, discontent again. And in that, when I was 11 years old, I split a can of beer with my brother, and everything, the magic of alcohol happened for me. And I say it's the magic of alcohol. That's the way our textbook describes it. It talks about the illusion created by alcohol. This idea that when I drink, I seem to be okay. I seem to be all right. Maybe just not all right, maybe better than. This delusional thinking that I get. The trouble is I can't stay drunk forever. I eventually sober up, and here I am again. I'm at the crossroads. Restless, irritable, discontent. I come to the crossroads once again. And I always choose what I know works, and that's booze. And when I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, as Mari and Karen laid out so beautifully, our first 3 steps here today, what happens for me in those is where I get right with God. This idea that I'm powerless without His help. I'm powerless. That I'm willing to consider His existence or its existence. I'm willing to consider its existence. And the third piece of that is I'm willing to forge some type of relationship with that power. It's our first 3 steps. I'm powerless. I'm willing to consider your existence, and I'm willing to try to forge some kind of relationship with something that I don't even know. And I think at that moment, God looks at all of us when we get to that point in our journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. I think God looks at all of us and says, we're good. We're good. We're good. But the next thing He says is this, but let's see who's been sitting in the God chair. And we launch on this course of vigorous action. We look, as Megan told us yesterday, we look through our columns. We go back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. We look at that. The list holds the key. We go back through our lives. We identify these resentments, these fears. We look at people, institution, principles. We look at our sex conduct. We look at our harms to others. We share that with someone else. When we share that with someone else, what happens is that as I heard a couple people, Joe made allusion to it last night, that, I feel this idea that I'm connected to something here. I'm part of something bigger than me. Don did such a great job last night of talking about character defects, what they look like, how they operate in my life, how it looks from a 30,000-foot view to look on Don's life, which is scary in and of itself. But to look at that, how that operates in our direct lives, what the practical looks like for us to be operating in character defects. Joe talked about amends last night, about this idea that we can have amends either directly or sometimes we just do it over time. And sometimes we cause such harm that you can't go and say, how can I make it right to a guy that's in prison for 20 years? But what we do is I can fake a lot of things. But I can't fake showing up. You can't fake that. When I'm there and present, I can't fake showing up. And those steps, understanding and getting right with God, and then looking at 4 through 9, and doing the real work in here in those 25 pages or so that of our textbook to see the real work in there, what we do, describing that out. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a guy that in the early years of my sobriety, I lived in that. I lived in the work that I did in 4 through 9. I would pay lip service to 10, 11. I would be, I'm happy to go carry the message. I'm happy to go do this. But there are areas that I'll pray. But I'm not really engaged in steps 10 and 11. I'm not really actively doing that. Now, all of us here today came to some point in our life, I know I certainly did, where I had this moment in time where the pain of going forward and living in active alcoholism just seemed like this was it. I'm at the end. And somebody carried a beneficial message to us in that moment. A beneficial message was carried to us, certainly carried to me, and the whole world shifted in an instant. I think one of the hardest things in our book that it asks us to do is to talk about what happened. I mean, how do you describe a miracle? By its very definition, it can't be logically described. It can't be articulated with any great clarity. But as always, our task is in that moment in time, what happened? And I'm sitting in an AA meeting on August the 15th, 2001, thinking, how do I drink and how do I stay sober? I had no intention of that day to get sober. My problem on August the 15th, 2001 was not alcoholism. It was not lack of sobriety. It was homelessness. Lori had thrown me out of the house one more time, and I need to craft a plan to get back in. That's my problem. It looks like that sometimes, Joe. My problem is I got to get back in the house. And I'm sitting in AA, and I'd been there for 45 days prior to that because she'd kicked me out earlier, but I didn't come to AA to get sober. Here's some good news if you're new or you're nearly new here today. You don't have to come to Alcoholics Anonymous to want to get sober here. Let me say that one more time. You don't have to come to Alcoholics Anonymous wanting to get sober here. It's the very nature of God's grace and the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I can just tell you this. When I was out there twisting and shouting, God never had a shot at me. He never had a shot at me out there. Although I can lay down for you, and hopefully I will here, some experiences I had in my life that certainly gave me some clues that perhaps I was being safe and protected. But I'm so cut off from all that. I'm so separated from all that, I don't know. But I'm sitting in AA when Lori first kicked me out of the house on June 30th of 2001. I came to AA with a newcomer plan because I think it's really important. When you come to AA, you have a newcomer plan. And so here was my newcomer plan. If you want to know, I'm going to tell you anyway. So my newcomer plan was this. I'm going to go to AA for 30 or 60 days till she settles down. And I'm going to tell her I'm going to AA so she'll settle down. And then I'm going to gradually go back to living my life the way I want to live it. It's a hell of a newcomer plan, quite frankly. I mean, it's good. Unless you're alcoholic. Then it's not worth anything at all. But I don't know that I'm alcoholic. That's the trouble. I don't know these things. I have this delusion that I've heard talked about this weekend. If she'll do this, if I get this, if it happens here, then I'll be all right. I continue to want to look at external circumstances in my life. If somehow those will change, then I'll be okay. If I can get this, then I'll be all right. If I have this job, this girl, this car, this house, I'll be all right. If I make this amount of money, I'll be all right. Somebody asked me one time, how much money do you need to have? I said, just enough so you don't need God anymore. I don't know how much that is, right? I don't know how much that is. And so I'm sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and all I can think about is how do I drink and how do I stay sober? It's a Rubik's Cube. Because in my mind, I'm the obsession of alcoholism is on me. And 45 days is the best I could do. I got up out of a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous 45 days after June 30th, 2001, sitting in AA, How do I drink? How do I stay sober? And, I'm so miserable. I mean, I had friends I drank with in college, and they looked like me. I mean, we would go burn it down. But they met him, they met her, they got these great jobs. They just quit. And then they got better jobs, better houses, started having kids, those things called 401ks, stuff like that, Their life got better when they stopped drinking. And I'm sitting in Alcoholics Anonymous in the summer of 2001, stopping drinking, and I'm telling you this, my life's not getting better. I'm getting sicker and sicker and sicker right in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Just don't drink and go to meetings don't work for a real alcoholic like me. And I say a real alcoholic like me because I find myself in the doctor's opinion and in the first 3 chapters of our book, the real alcoholic. I suffer that way, but I don't know that. So I got up and I went drinking. And of course I do what I always do. When I started drinking on a Thursday, I didn't come home till Sunday because I go at large, And I came home Sunday, nobody's happy, and eventually, she throws me out of the house again. I detox on the guy's couch for a couple of days, and I come back to Alcoholics Anonymous on August 15th, 2001. No intention to get sober. That's not my problem. My problem is homelessness. And I'm sitting in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and again, how do I drink and how do I stay sober? That is all I can think about. How do I drink and how do I stay sober? And there's 5 minutes left in the AA meeting. And my head goes stone cold quiet. Anybody here has head that like to talk to you? Just a lot of good information that's got to impart at any given moment. Right? Alcoholism never comes to me at 2 in the afternoon. It's 2 in the morning. Clif, get up. We've been up for an hour. Get in. We need you in the game. Come on. Get in. A lot of good stuff we got to talk about. That's my head. I hear people talk about, the committee. I think, my God, if I could get it to a committee, that would be great. I would think that's a win if I could get it to a committee. But it just goes quiet. That's an attention getter. I just sat right up in my chair. And this is a thought that came to me. It's not a thought that originated in me. I know that today. Because my thoughts are this: how do I drink and how do I stay sober? And the thought was this: if you don't do something different today, you're going to die. When I was, from the time I was born till I was 5 years old, my family, we lived in West Texas. I was born in Texas, lived in West Texas. And my mom and dad were from Oklahoma, and my mom wanted to go back home. And so my dad said, okay, and because if mama's happy, everybody's happy. And we went back to Oklahoma, down to southeast Oklahoma. And we lived in this big 2-story pink house next to a country club, and they were packing up to go. And I can remember the Mayflower moving van out front. It's like I see it right now. And we had one of those big deep freezes that stood up. But it was unplugged, and they were hauling stuff out. And I'm walking around the house with a bag of Fritos, and I think this looks like a good place just to crawl into. And I do. And the door shuts on me. And they looked for me all over that house. They couldn't find me anywhere. And finally, my mom, out of desperation, opened the freezer, and I'm in the bottom, and I'm just about out of air, and I'm just sweating, and it's, I'm crying, and I'm just about dead. When I was 13 years old, when I was a teenager, I was a bull rider in high school. I'll tell you this story. You'll figure out not a very good one, but we were riding. One summer we had a bunch of bulls pinned up. We were riding them, and I rode this bull. I got off of it. He turned on me and hit me, and he rolled me up, and my neck just ballooned out. And I thought, gosh, I pulled all the muscles on my neck, and I walked around for about 4 or 5 days, and my mom and dad kept trying to talk me into going to the hospital. I said, I think I just have these muscles pulled. And finally the pain got so intense, I said, I got to go. And we went to the hospital, and they began to stick all these pins, because if you got a neck problem, they begin to stick you with pins in the bottom of your feet and up your arms and up your hands. That hurts, by the way, which is a good thing. I remember the doctor sat my mother down and said, listen, let me tell you about the fracture your son has. He has between the first and second vertebrae, and out of 100 people, 98 will die. One of them will be a paraplegic for the rest of his life, and one knucklehead will walk away, and that's your son. He didn't say that, but I got it, right? And I remember I walked around in I was in a hospital for 6 weeks, get these little dents in the side of my head because I had this, basically like an ice, like you're grabbing ice blocks in my head on a striker frame all summer, knowing for sure God had screwed me. Knowing for a fact God had screwed me. The one thing I found in my life that I liked and really enjoyed, taken from me like that. Convinced that God had screwed me. When I was 17 years old, I had been out drinking, and my dad called me and said, I need you to bring this to town. And I got in my car and I took off for town, and I had 2 bottles of Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill under my seat. There's my people right there. I did not know corks came in wine until I moved to the big city. I'm just saying that. They were useless, but I know they have them now. And I come over an overpass. There's a state weigh station for big trucks to go into and weigh. And I remember topping the hill, and I just pass out when I topped the hill. And as I come over the hill and just passed out, I remember there was a semi parked on the shoulder before the weigh station. And when I crested the hill, I just went out. And I hit that semi, the middle of my truck hit the left back corner of it, and I spun around, and I woke up in the middle of the highway, of a 4-lane highway, and there was just enough room in the truck for me to sit. The engine had been pushed back into the passenger seat. There was just enough room for me to sit. When I was 18 years old, I was in college at Oklahoma State University. Homecoming's a big deal there. Big deal. I mean, they go all out. House decorations. I'm in a fraternity there. By the way, I'm not a real joiner. I'm a lone wolf. I don't do well. I'm lazy, quite frankly. And they make you do stuff, and I don't want to do that. But I'd been out drinking on Friday night. We had to pump the chicken wire. And so they came and got me up. And they give me instructions on what to do. I'm a freshman, so the upperclassmen are giving me instructions on what to do that I don't want to do anyway. And I'm cutting this chicken wire, and they say, hey, you need to go over and help them move this scaffolding. So we're moving the scaffolding so they can pump the top of the chicken wire. And so I get up and I begin to move towards the scaffolding. I'm probably from here to Billy. There's 7 people that have lifted the scaffolding and are moving it. 4 of them had on tennis shoes. 3 of them had on cowboy boots. They tip it and they hit a highline wire. And the steel from the scaffolding stuck to the... And the 4 guys with tennis shoes got blown back and away. But the 3 guys with cowboy boots made a ground and stuck them, and they were electrocuted and died right in front of me. And on August 15th of 2001, a voice says to me, if you don't do something different today, you're going to die. That meeting was over. You good people got up and held hands and said the Lord's Prayer, and I just did what I always do. I just broke for the door because I'm a runner. I don't know that the power that I need lies at my fingertips. But I just broke for the door. There'd been an old man there. 45 days he had stopped me and asked me if he could help me. And I would just blow him off. He didn't ever tell me what to do in those 45 days. He just offered me friendship and fellowship. And when I rejected that, what he would do is step aside and let whiskey do the job. Because I'm firmly convinced, based on my own experience, till whiskey does the job on us, I don't have a problem. And on August 15, 2001, the old man caught me one more time and he said, "Bub, how are you doing?" And on that day, I gave him a different answer. We talk about it around here about, our textbook describes it as incomprehensible demoralization. We'll toss it around in our rooms as the gift of desperation. It's just grace. It's just grace. And on that day, I gave a different answer, and he looked at me and he said, "Listen, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know." And I said, "I need a sponsor." I don't know where that came from. That wasn't what my head was telling me. My head was telling me, run, run. But I said, "I need a sponsor." And he said, "That's a lot to ask of somebody. Let's sit down and talk about that." And everything about my life changed in that moment. The difficulty of trying to describe that moment, this shift, this rearrangement of ideas, emotions, and attitudes in that moment. If you have that kind of experience, why wouldn't you want to grow the relationship with that power who has constantly and continuously drug you out of the jaws of death? If you have those near-death experiences, why wouldn't you take every moment? Life is like sometimes trying to hold water. It just runs through. And if I'm not in the moment, if I'm not present, it escapes me. If I'm not here and willing to participate, not just in a fellowship of recovery, but formulating a deep and meaningful relationship with the God of our understanding, this power of Alcoholics Anonymous, this power that we find here, why wouldn't I be willing to do that? Why wouldn't I be willing to forge what 10 and 11 talks about? In step 10, it asks us to continue to watch for these things in our lives that give us so much consternation, dishonesty, resentment, fear, these things that paralyze me. And in 4 through 9, I learn about those things in my life. I learned that these, in fact, are the things that are blocking me off from the power. That is, my own selfish self-centeredness, my failure to rely on this power is why I'm so lost. This separation from the power is why, and in fact, causes me the consternation of my life. I come to that crossroad of restless, irritable discontentedness, and suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm offered a different solution. I'm going to tell you about me. You offer me a solution. Before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm like a guy drowning out here in the ocean. I'm on about Bob 2.5. And a Coast Guard cutter comes along. And they pull up beside me and they get out and they wrap up a life preserver and they throw it to a guy that's on Bob 2.5, nose barely sticking up. And I grab it. But once I grab it, I begin to notice some things about it. I notice that it's blue. And for God's sakes, I only accept orange life preservers, for Christ's sakes. And so I throw it back. I go, no, just orange. Just orange. And I continue to bob in the ocean. That's my life before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. I have conditions on what it takes for me to be different. If you'll help me get my job back, my girl back, my house back, whatever, if you'll help me do that, because I got to tell you, walking into Alcoholics Anonymous and looking at the steps on the wall, those don't look like the answers to my questions. I'm a lawyer by trade. I get to step 4. They want me to write stuff down. Well, that's evidence. My God, we don't put anything in writing. I mean, especially in Jersey. You guys know that. I mean, we write that stuff down. And then they want me to tell somebody about it. I mean, it's bad enough. I got to write it down. Now I got to confess. I mean, this is all bad. I did not accept this willingly. I mean, I'm looking at those going, this is not good. This is not good at all. And I have conditions on my life, conditions on my recovery, because I'm full of old ideas. In our inventory that Megan did such a wonderful job on yesterday, it talks about in there people, institutions, and principles. Principles is just another word for old ideas. Over the chapter, We Agnostics, it talks about old ideas. Prejudice, just another word for I don't have any information about the subject matter, but I'm going to make some stuff up. I'm just going to make it up, what I believe it means. Right? I'm burdened with all that coming here. And maybe you were too. Maybe you came to Alcoholics Anonymous with conditions on your sobriety, burdened by all this when you rolled into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And old ideas, prejudices, principles that no longer function in this world of the Spirit, as step 10 tells us. For now we have entered the world of the Spirit. When I went to college back in the dark ages in 1977, I took a computer science class. And in that computer science class, when I walked in, the computer room that stored the computer was about one of those sections over there. It was huge. And we had these punch cards. And we punched the cards out and we put them in a card reader. And the card reader read the program you punched out. And if it was right, over here, like 100 yards away, was a printer. And it printed out all this green paper and you'd have a stack about this. If you did it right, yeah, you remember. If you did it right, you got this cool little computer program that printed out. Now, that's what I know about computers in 1977. If I go to sleep, and in 2022, I come awake again, and Billy hands me an iPhone and says, "Here, buddy, here's your computer." The first thing I'm going to ask is this: where's the card reader? Because that's what I know about computers, and that's what happens for a guy like me. Because I have old ideas, principles, and prejudice, when I wake up in the spiritual world, I try to make those work here. I try to make the card reader idea work in the spiritual world. And what happens for me is I find myself once again bucking up against selfishness, dishonesty, and resentment and fear. And it tells me that I must watch for those things. Have you ever been in a Step 10 meeting and all they talk about is amends? That's all they talk about. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I'm not saying the step certainly talks about that when we were wrong promptly. I'm not saying at all. It's not. But I think Step 10 is so much more than that. I mean, that's like the safety net. That's like the failure of Step 10. That's like when we didn't practice it correctly, we get a get-out-of-jail-free card. Because what the step calls for me to do is watch for these things. Because why? I now live in the spiritual world. And so when I'm sitting in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous and you people are sharing, and I'm thinking, that so much sucks. That is so wrong. That is, I don't know how you stay sober. I'm thinking this. You're killing people, right? You're killing people. And I get this judgmentalness. Do I pause right then and think, what am I afraid of? What has me afraid? Where in this, what's wrong with me? You know, the disturbance that causes, it's never you. It's me. And when I don't pause and say, stop, the head, stop. Live and let live, brother. Let them be who they are. Come back. Come back to the moment. Come back to the present. That's none of your business. Where are you? And I analyze these things honestly before I go and have to tell him, you're killing people, right? Because later I might come in and say, sorry about I said you were killing people. It is the failure of step 10 where I have to make amends. What the spiritual life calls me to do is to review where I'm at in the moment. It requires me to review my thoughts, my actions, my conduct in the moment. And look, quite frankly, at where am I? Where am I in my relationship to God and the people about me? Because I'm going to tell you something. When the vertical relationship is good, you people share so well in AA meetings. My God, you're just wonderful. But I'm going to tell you something. If I've gone from God's will to self-direction, you people suck. You just suck and you're killing everybody. Right? That's not what the book says. Come, let me beat you with that. And so the focus of step 10, the emphasis of step 10 is not the amends. The amends is the failure, and which we're going to have. And trust me, I'm the King Sabi of the failure here. Because when I'm not actively participating in step 10, when I'm just 4 through 9 in it, when I'm trying to live off of that, what happens to me is I begin to slowly but surely drift away and get out of God's will back into Clif's will, become self-directed again. I went to see my sponsor about in May of this year. And I sat down with him for 5 hours. We just had a good discussion. And at the end of the conversation, he said, Clif, you're self-directed again. You're self-directed again. And it's so subtle. It is so subtle. You know, if I'm sailing a ship out of New York to England and I get off 1 degree, I'm thinking, well, how big a deal is that? I mean, how big is 1 degree? I mean, in AA, how big a deal is 1 degree? Well, I didn't know how big a deal it was, but I was giving a talk down at a men's retreat in Central Florida about 10 years ago, and two Navy guys, they did the calculation for me. They were being helpful, Lori. They were being helpful. They come up to me afterwards and say, Clif, we can tell you exactly. If you leave New York and you get 1 degree off, you end up in the south of France. I said, this is perfect. I end up in wine country with people I don't know, talking a language I can't speak in wine country. And that's what happens to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. I begin to get 1 degree off. I don't pray today. I don't do these things today. I don't need to answer that phone today. I get 1 degree off. I start to chip away. You know, Bob D talks about, hey, welcome. I'm here today for anybody that's new or anybody that's about to leave that are compromising themselves out of Alcoholics Anonymous, 1 compromise at a time. Compromising my way out of Alcoholics Anonymous, 1 compromise at a time. I don't need to answer that phone call today. I don't need to go to that. He's just going to say the same thing. I don't need to call my sponsor today. I know what he's going to say. I don't need to go to that meeting and not even know it's my home group. I'm tired. I've been working all day. Man, sometimes I'm addicted to comfort and allergic to service. Are you? I mean, it's that way. But what the 10th step talks about for me, and I love the 10th step because it has some nuggets in it. Some real nuggets for a knucklehead like me. It talks about this idea that I have to be, this idea of growing in my understanding and effectiveness. And then there's a little jackpot at the end of that paragraph. It says, love and tolerance of others is our code. 12 and 12 talks about defective human relationships, this idea of defective human relationships. One of my real problems is this defective human relationships. And what I've discovered here is that the only way that I'm going to make it out here with you people is I've got to find some ways to have some compassion for you. I've got to find some ways to grow in my understanding and effectiveness. And the only way that happens is if I love and understand you more. It's the only way it happens. Is that when I listen, what Don talked about, when I listen to you, I don't need to be thinking what I'm going to say. I don't need to think about what I'm going to say next, how I'm going to retort to you. I need to listen and understand you. It is only through understanding you that my love for you can grow. It's only through looking at you through the lens that I've looked at for every newcomer that's ever come in the door. That's how I have to see everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous, whether you've been here one day or 49 years, as Eddie was last night. I have to look at you as a newcomer so I can hear you. And only through that, only through the love and tolerance for you can I grow that understanding and effectiveness. And it tells us in here that this is how we build our spiritual life. This is how we do that. We practice watching what we think. We watch what our minds... These things sometimes pop in my head, but generally after an interaction with you. I have an interaction with you, I immediately get resentful. I have an interaction with you, I immediately get fearful. I have an interaction with you, I lie. Huh? And these things happen, and that's when the thoughts come, and then I have to think, I have to go to God. Because that's what our textbook tells us, we go to God. The power. It's been the magic potion for us since we arrived here. We only have a couple things here. Pray and help other people. Whatever your problem is, you bring it to me. What do they say? What does your sponsor always say? Well, have you prayed about it? And who are you helping? That's all they got. It's not like they're going to come up with some big new idea. That's all they ever say to us. Have you prayed about it? Who are you helping? But it talks to us about that we get this daily reprieve. Now, a reprieve, that's a stay of execution. You ever watch those old Jimmy Cagney movies, right? Be ready to flip the switch on Jimmy. Guy runs in and says, wait, don't flip the switch. The governor has issued a reprieve. The stay of execution. That's what I got today. That's what you got today. Stay of execution. Why? To drink is to die. We get a stay of execution. Everybody in this room today gets a stay of execution today. Based on the maintenance of what I do in step 10. Based on what I do here, continuing to watch for selfish, dishonest resentment and fear. And who wouldn't want to build a relationship with a God that has saved us from all the destruction? Who wouldn't want to build a relationship in step 11 with a God who's brought us from the shores, right? Who's brought us from the depths of hell and resurrected us. That person who has refurbished our lives and yet set us in the stream of commerce. And I'll give lip service. I'll tell you I pray. I'll tell you I meditate. But because I really don't know what meditation is, I'll lie to you and tell you I'm doing that. Because I think meditation is getting a pill out, turn the lights down. Because I watched Kung Fu growing up. And, I get the candle on. I can't do that. And so I don't try it. I just know I can't do it. And so what do? Nothing. I do nothing. Finally, I got so broken. I got so beat up trying to live in 4 through 9. I finally went to the guy and said, I don't know how to meditate. He said, well, what are you doing? I said, nothing. He said, well, we got a lot to work with then. And he had me get a book. And he said, I want you to spend 5 minutes a day. I want you to read the little story in the book, and I want you to contemplate on the story of how it works in your life. How does that fit? And I thought, okay, 5 minutes. Well, that's 500% more than I'm doing now, so I can try it. I'm going to tell you what happened to me. See, I'm thirsty. I drank because I was thirsty. But now I've entered the world of the Spirit. I have a different thirst today. The thirst that Dr. Jung wrote about, that Mari talked about. I have a different thirst today. What started with 5 minutes turned into 20 minutes and then 30 minutes. And now it's an hour a day of getting up and communing with God and finding out. My wife one day came in and said, are these books, what are all these books on my kitchen table? Am I getting the kitchen table back anytime soon? Because what happens for me is I'll read a spiritual piece of literature and it'll reference something else. I got to go get that. And before long, I got 20 books that I'm piling through, and she wants her table back. I go, it's God's work. Leave it alone. It's God's work. Everything we do here is God's work. The blessings we have. You ever seen a little kid get on a stoop like this, maybe a little higher, and their mom or dad walk by? And they do something like this. Catch me! And they just jump. And in a panic, they always get caught. They have the faith that when the mother and father walk by, if they jump, they'll be caught. They have no fear. They have the fundamental faith and belief that when I jump, the Father will catch me. The faith of a child. People all my life telling me, Clif, you need to grow up. You need to grow up. No, I think here what I need to do is grow down spiritually. I need to spiritually grow down to the faith of a child. I need to be willing to stand on the precipice and just jump. I need to take the leap of faith and know that the Father who presides over us all has me, has you, and has us all. That I can wiggle and squirm, but He's got me in the palm of the hand. If I'll stay true to what I've been asked to do here, love and service, if I stay true to that, then what I know is that all of us are once again safe and protected, living the best life we've ever known. Thank you all for having me this weekend.